tell you a bit of a story. In 1987, I'm about 4 years old. My dad is super excited about this new show that is starting. Apparently, it's the version of an old show that he watched when he was a kid. I remember soft tones and planets moving across the screen, and I remember a man's voice, and then I remember a starship. A big old spaceship. And of course, that spaceship would end up being the USS Enterprise 1701D, and that man's voice would be Captain Jean-Luc Picard. The man began speaking of amazing things that my young mind had never dreamed of. And in that moment, I was a nerd. That moment, in the weeks and years of Star Trek that followed, formed who I would be. Star Trek has sparked the imagination of not just myself, obviously, but thousands and thousands of people before and after me. Heck, we wouldn't even have cell phones the way we do today if it weren't for the Star Trek communicator and somebody looking at that and thinking, I want that. It happens so often in sci-fi that it sparks the imagination of great people and pushes them to do the things that would seem impossible. Even now, years after Star Trek has been off the air, people continue to be inspired. Today we have the HTC Vive VR contraption. It's a room-scale VR that seems to be trying to emulate something like the holodeck from the next generation. The holodeck has been for years one of those sci-fi technologies that seems to stick out for many people as something to achieve, something to push for, something we want. Yet in all of the years of watching Star Trek, it was never the technology of the holodeck that piqued my interest. It was the utility of it, how people used it. You see, for as long as humans have been around, we have been telling stories. Pictures on walls, songs, plays, books, movies. Telling stories has been one of the most important things in human history. It's how we educate, entertain. It's how we learn what humanity is beyond the borders of our own narrow slice of life. I could go on pretentiously for a really long time about the importance of storytelling, but I think you understand that storytelling is the center of how we humans interact with each other. It defines our dreams and our values. And for as long as we've been telling stories and for all the different ways that we use to tell them, one thing has remained constant. To take in a story is a passive experience. Someone tells you the thrilling story of who Tracy from accounting is banged last night. You listen, you take it in. You watch the story of an eccentric detective on your television, you watch. Some guy with a skull in his hand is on stage, he's talking about how to be or something, you watch. You listen, you take in the story. But the holodeck was something different. We wouldn't just be told that the character was super sad, we would experience the sadness. We wouldn't just be told that the circumstances were disastrous, we would be in the middle of that disaster. We wouldn't be told how the character was supposed to feel because we would be a part of it, feeling that thing firsthand. I remember as a kid picking apart the idea of the holotext storytelling in my brain. What would happen if you, as Sherlock Holmes, did something that Holmes would never do? Would it break the story? Change it? How far can you go outside of the parameters of the story before it's not the story anymore? Suddenly you're not partaking in someone else's story, but then you're creating your own. It was something that stuck with me. I loved every episode that used the holodeck because it gave me more insight into how storytelling of the future worked, and it was fascinating. It felt like, maybe even by accident, that in creating this rad future tech in a sci-fi show that was honestly just a plot device, that they'd stumbled into what storytelling could actually be in the future. How the reality of one of the single oldest and most important things humans do could change and evolve into something infinitely more personal and infinitely more complex in its execution. Now, in 1987, video games were simple. You shoot the guys in Contra, you punch the dudes in Street Fighter, you save the world in Final Fantasy, you wreck the Metal Gear in Metal Gear. You get the picture. Now, there was definitely storytelling in games at the time, but they weren't trying to tell a story. The games in the 80s told the story to advance you to the next thing to do in the game. The story was a means to an end. Your princesses in another castle moved you to the next castle. But there were sparks of something. Metal Gear's heel turn of Big Boss caught us off guard, and the whole time we, as Solid Snake, had trusted Big Boss. He was always in our ear, giving us orders, leading us, and then his sudden betrayal left an impact. Games had started ever so slightly to do the things that traditional storytelling couldn't do, and what the holodeck promised. Because in Metal Gear, Big Boss didn't betray Solid Snake. He betrayed us. He wasn't talking to Solid Snake this whole time, he was talking to us. And when the turn happened, it wasn't Solid Snake that felt the oh crap moment, it was us. Because we had trusted him, because we had followed his orders. We did, as the player. Video games had started placing us into the story, and over the years gave us more and more urgency in the worlds. When we did something that influenced the world in the game, be it scripted or generated, it was us. It may have been Lara Croft or Master Chief or Link or any other character on the screen, but it was us. Our inputs that moved the character, our motions were their motions. They would do nothing without our say. We were a part of the story. And as the technology has advanced and the writers mature and game makers embrace the idea of interactive storytelling more and more, we come to 2016. And games are telling amazing stories of heroism and heartbreak and everything in between. And we are a part of those emotions. We are a part of the story in a way that no storytelling medium has ever done. The promise of the holodeck, the promise of that interactive story is already here. Even if we don't have the big, fancy, impossible room to engage with it, we have the screens and the controllers. Video games are important. Perhaps one of the most important things. Games take the ancient and fundamental idea of storytelling and make it infinitely more personal and more relatable, more urgent and more emotionally involved. It evolves storytelling, just as Gene Roddenberry foretold. Video games aren't just for kids, and they aren't just for wasting time, and they aren't just for nerds in basements. They aren't just violent, and they aren't just all the things that people want to ascribe to games. They are stories, and stories are what humankind is built on. So, what am I trying to say? Well, for those of you who are not video game players, who do not understand video games, stop thinking of games as a child's plaything. The name is a misnomer. It's a relic of the past. Games have grown into something much bigger, much broader. Interactive media is not just a new pillar in the timeline of human interaction, it's a new form that continues to grow, evolve. Interactive media is still young and it's still maturing, and that's the most exciting thing. Who knows what the future brings? And to those of us who love games, remember what it is. Remember what it already is. We don't have to have this useless fight talking about what if games are art? Are games art? Are games this? Are games that? We want to make video games important. We want to make people understand that games are important in ways that completely diminish what games really are. Are games art? Maybe. Some games are, some games are not. But that's not the point. The medium is infinitely more important than that argument. What it's doing for storytelling is infinitely more important than that tiny little thing. And the bickering between ourselves just proves that this medium has not matured enough yet. Games are important, and it's okay to love them. Thank you.